My parents took me to court because I bought a house, not because I stole money, not because I tricked anyone, not because I had signed some secret family agreement written in invisible ink, because I, Elena Marlova, 31 years old, had worked myself half to death for 8 straight years in commercial real estate, saved every dollar I could, skipped vacations, lived in cheap apartments with bad plumbing and worse neighbors, and finally bought the kind of home I used to stare at from car windows when I was a kid. Their response was not, "Congratulations." It was, "That house should have gone to Victoria." At first, I laughed. I honestly thought my father was joking. There are moments in life when your brain protects you by refusing to understand cruelty right away. It gives you a second to breathe before the knife goes in. But my parents were not joking, and neither was my older sister. The house was in Riverside Heights, one of those neighborhoods people whispered about like it belonged to another species of human being. Tree-lined streets, wide porches, lawns trimmed like velvet, 4 bedrooms, a 3-car garage, and a backyard big enough to host every birthday party I never had growing up. The price was $850. Ling ling ling. I put down $170. 000 cash. 20%. No PMAI. Clean mortgage approval. My credit score was 798. And my debt-to-income ratio made the loan officer smile like I had handed her a gift. I earned that house. Every brick of it felt like a receipt for the nights I cried quietly over spreadsheets. In the weekends, I spent touring properties instead of seeing friends. The years I ate instant noodles, because saving money mattered more than pretending I had money. Growing up, I had learned early that nobody was coming to rescue me. My father, Richard, worked middle management at an insurance company. My mother, Elaine, was a part-time dental hygienist. They were comfortable, not rich. But somehow, there was always money for Victoria. Dance lessons, piano lessons, art class, summer camps, private tutoring when her grades collapsed. For me, Elena. Go figure it out. When I wanted to take the SATs at 17, I paid the fee myself from money I earned working weekends at a local auto shop, answering phones and cleaning grease-stained counters. Victoria got a BMW for her 18th birthday because, according to my parents, she needed reliable transportation for college. I got a used laptop with a cracked hinge and a reminder not to be ungrateful. Victoria was 33 now. She had a communications degree. My parents paid $160. Nulfo. 2 years in California, finding herself, and 5 years of calling herself a lifestyle influencer while making maybe $800 a month from coffee photos, mirror selfies, and stolen motivational quotes. She still lived in my parents' basement, still drove the BMW, still believed life owed her applause. I used to tell myself I wasn't bitter. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I turned bitterness into fuel so efficiently that I forgot it had ever been pain. When I got the keys, I took a photo in front of the house and posted it on Facebook. Dreams do come true when you work for them. Friends from college commented. Co-workers cheered. Old construction buddies I had worked with during summers sent proud messages. People who had seen me grind knew what that moment meant. My parents did not like the post. They did not comment. 3 days later, my father called. "We need to have a family meeting about this house situation." "What house situation?" I asked. His voice went cold. "You know what I'm talking about." That evening, I drove to their house, expecting maybe awkward jealousy, maybe a lecture about staying humble. I did not expect an ambush. My parents sat together on the couch like a married pair of judges. Victoria sat across from them, legs crossed, lips pressed into that smug little smile she wore whenever she already believed she had won. There was one empty chair facing all 3 of them. For me, the lighting was dim. The room smelled like my mother's vanilla candle, an old resentment. Dad started, "Elena, We've been talking as a family. And we think the right thing to do would be for Victoria to have the house. I blinked. Then I laughed. What are you talking about? Mom's face tightened. This is exactly the attitude we mean. Victoria is struggling. You're doing very well for yourself. You could buy another house eventually. Victoria leaned forward, eyes shining with fake hurt. I've always dreamed of having a house like that, she said. Honestly, I think I deserve it more than you do. The room went silent. She continued. I've been through so much emotional trauma trying to build my brand. You don't understand how hard it is to be a creative entrepreneur. You have a corporate job and steady income. Everything was handed to you. Everything was handed to me. I stared at my sister, who had never worked a real full-time job in her life, who thought choosing an Instagram filter was pressure, who called herself independent while my parents paid her phone bill, car insurance, health insurance, and bought her groceries. And I felt something inside me go still, not angry, still, the kind of stillness that comes right before a person finally stops begging to be loved correctly. You are all insane, I said. Then I stood up. Dad barked. This conversation isn't over. I looked back at them from the doorway. Yes, I said quietly. It is. But I was wrong. It was only the beginning. I thought walking out of that living room would end the madness. I underestimated how dangerous entitlement becomes when it's been fed for 30 years. 2 weeks later, I came home from the gym, carrying a protein shake and groceries. A woman, in a navy suit, was waiting beside my front steps. Elena Marlowe. Yes, you've been served. She handed me a thick envelope, before turning away with the practiced professionalism of someone who had long ago stopped asking questions about humanity. I stood frozen in my driveway. 47 pages. My own parents were suing me. Not asking. Not negotiating. Suing. The first page nearly made me laugh again. Then I kept reading. By page 5. I wasn't laughing anymore. According to the lawsuit, I supposedly owed my parents over $400,000 in child-rearing expenses and educational investment. Another section claimed Victoria had become financially disadvantaged because of economic instability affecting creative entrepreneurs. Then came the sentence that almost made me choke. As their daughter, I allegedly had both a moral and legal obligation to ensure the financial stability of my immediate family. The final demand was almost surreal. Transfer ownership of my house to Victoria. Continue paying the mortgage for the next 36 months. And compensate my parents $15,000 for the emotional distress I had caused by refusing. I stared at the papers for several minutes before calling my closest friend, Daniel Foster. Daniel was an attorney. He answered on the second ring. Hey. Congratulations again on the house. I've just been sued by my parents. Silence. You've... What? I read the lawsuit aloud. When I finished, Daniel didn't speak for nearly 30 seconds. Finally he exhaled. Elena. This is one of the most ridiculous complaints I've ever heard. So I'm not crazy. Oh. They're absolutely crazy. Another pause. But crazy people still require legal responses. He offered to represent me. Part of me wanted to accept immediately. Instead, I told him I wanted to understand every page before anyone else fought this battle for me. I'll help behind the scenes, he said. But promise me one thing. What? Document everything. That advice ended up saving me. Within days, Victoria launched herself into full victim mode. Her Instagram stories became daily performances. She uploaded tearful selfies with captions about betrayal, about toxic family members, about women supporting women, and irony so spectacular, it almost impressed me. Then came TikTok. She started a series called My Sister Stole My Future. The first video showed her crying into the camera. I already imagined raising my children in that house. Another clip claimed I'd manipulated our parents. Another insisted success had changed me. The comments were sympathetic for about 24 hours. Then people started asking inconvenient questions. If she bought the house herself, why should you own it? Why don't you buy? How exactly did she steal your future? Victoria never answered. Instead, she cried harder. My parents joined the campaign. Mom posted a heartbreaking essay on Facebook, describing all the sacrifices she'd supposedly made, raising me. Dad shared articles about successful children abandoning their parents. Neither one mentioned that I had paid my own SAT fees, or worked construction every summer, or graduated with almost no financial help. Facts were strangely absent from their version of history. Then, Victoria created a GoFundMe. Its title read, "Help me recover my family home." She claimed I had manipulated legal loopholes to steal property that morally belonged to her. She asked strangers for $30,000. People actually donated. Mostly distant relatives. Mostly people who only heard one side. My Aunt Linda became their loudest supporter. She commented under nearly every public post I made. Ungrateful. Selfish. Heartless. She even called my office. Fortunately. And my managing director found the entire situation absurd. He called me into his office. "I assume this woman doesn't actually speak for your family." Isaiah. "Unfortunately, she does." He smiled sympathetically. "Handle your business. Your job's safe." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not everyone believed lies, simply because they were told loudly. Then the harassment became physical. I noticed unfamiliar cars slowing outside my house. Sometimes they parked across the street, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes longer. I installed security cameras and a Ring doorbell within the first week. The cameras captured everything. Victoria creeping toward my living room windows after 11 at night. Aunt Linda photographing my property. My parents sitting silently inside their SUV at the end of my driveway without ever knocking, watching, waiting, as though, if they stared long enough, the house would magically become Victoria's. Daniel looked through the recordings. "Keep every second." "I already am. They're building your case for you." Discovery began. I submitted every financial record connected to my home purchase. Every paycheck, every tax return, every bank transfer, every mortgage document, everything. In return, I requested theirs. What came back surprised even me. My parents weren't struggling financially, not even close. Between savings, investments, and retirement accounts, they had over $200,000. For years they had told everyone, including Victoria, that money was tight. It wasn't. Then I examined Victoria's bank records. Every month, exactly $2,500, transferred from my parents. Month after month, 3 straight years. $90,000. They paid her phone, her insurance, medical expenses, car, maintenance. She lived rent-free. Yet, online, she portrayed herself as an independent entrepreneur, bravely surviving without help. I leaned back in my chair. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Suddenly, every accusation they had thrown at me became crystal clear. They weren't protecting Victoria. They were protecting the fantasy they had created around her. If they admitted she had failed despite every advantage they'd given her, they would have to admit they had been wrong for decades. And that was something they simply couldn't bear. So instead, they chose to make me the villain. Little did they know. Every lie they told was becoming another piece of evidence. Every post, every transfer, every visit, every threat. Quietly, patiently, I built a mountain of proof. Because by then, I understood something that changed everything. This lawsuit was never really about a house. It was about forcing reality to surrender to entitlement. And reality was about to fight back. The court date arrived faster than I expected. For 3 months, I had lived inside a mountain of paperwork, bank statements, mortgage documents, security footage, screenshots, police reports. Every lie my family told had been carefully matched with evidence that proved otherwise. I wasn't nervous. I was exhausted. There is a difference. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of my navy suit. My reflection looked calm. Inside, however, my stomach twisted, not because I doubted my case, because I couldn't believe I was about to stand in court against the people who had raised me. The drive to the courthouse felt strangely peaceful. Cold winter sunlight reflected off the buildings. People hurried to work, carrying coffee and briefcases. To everyone else, It was an ordinary Monday. To me, it felt like the day my old family officially died. I arrived nearly 40 minutes early. Daniel met me outside. "I know you insisted on representing yourself," he said with a smile. "But I'm sitting behind you, if you need anything." "I appreciate it. You've done the work. I hope it's enough." He looked toward the courthouse entrance. "It will be." Then my family arrived. They came together, like they were attending a funeral. My father, my mother, Victoria, Aunt Linda, half a dozen relatives who apparently believed moral support could somehow replace legal evidence. Victoria wore an expensive, cream-colored coat. She carried a folder decorated with 9 interior design magazine cutouts. I frowned. What is she carrying? Daniel glanced over. "Please tell me those aren't what I think they are." Unfortunately, they were Pinterest screenshots, furniture layouts, paint color samples. She had brought decorating ideas for my house, even after filing a lawsuit. She genuinely believed she would walk out of court, owning it. That level of delusion almost deserved scientific study. Inside the courtroom, the judge entered precisely at 9. She appeared to be in her mid-50s, calm, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who had probably witnessed every possible version of family dysfunction. She wasted no time. "Counsel, proceed." Their attorney stood. "Your Honor, my clients devoted decades to raising their daughter, investing significant financial and emotional resources into her development. They now seek equitable recognition of that investment through redistribution of assets that would better serve the family's collective needs." The judge looked at him without expression. "Are you arguing that parenting creates ownership rights over an adult child's property?" He hesitated. "Our position is that fairness." "I'm asking about the law." Silence. My client's older daughter, Victoria, currently experiences financial hardship, and the defendant is financially successful and capable of acquiring another residence. The judge turned toward me. "Miss Marlowe." I stood. "My parents contributed nothing toward purchasing my home. I handed the clerk a binder. I earned every dollar through my own employment, over 8 years in commercial real estate. This lawsuit attempts to transfer privately owned property based solely on family preference." She nodded once. "Let's review the evidence." Their side went first. The first exhibit made several people in the courtroom exchange confused looks. Baby photographs. The attorney smiled confidently. "These images demonstrate my client's investment in raising the defendant." The judge blinked. "Counsel." "Yes. Your Honor, how exactly do baby pictures establish legal ownership of residential property?" "They demonstrate sacrifice. They demonstrate that your clients had a baby." Soft laughter echoed across the courtroom. The attorney quickly moved on. Next came Victoria's student loan records. They invested heavily in Victoria's education. The judge asked a simple question. "Who borrowed the money?" Victoria answered, "I did." "So you're responsible?" "Yes. But social media income has been difficult." "What is your current occupation?" "I'm building my personal brand." "What is your monthly income?" Victoria hesitated. "It fluctuates." "What was last month's income?" "About $800. "So you are essentially unemployed." "I'm an entrepreneur." The judge wrote something down without looking up. Then came the masterpiece. Victoria's business proposal. It outlined her plans to convert my dining room into a filming studio, my upstairs office into a content creation suite, the backyard into an influencer event space. The judge slowly lowered the pages. "Did Ms. Marlowe agree to any of this?" "No." "Does she know this document exists?" "Probably now." More quiet laughter. Their attorney sat down, looking defeated. The judge looked toward me. "Your turn." I walked to the evidence table. My first exhibit? Complete purchase records, employment history, mortgage approval, tax documents, every payment, every transfer, every signature. The judge spent several minutes reviewing them. "There appears to be no dispute regarding ownership." "There isn't," I answered. My second exhibit. The forensic accountant's report. Detailed financial records showing my parents possessed over $200,000 in savings and investments, while publicly claiming they were nearly broke. The judge raised an eyebrow. So the plaintiffs misrepresented their financial condition. Yes, Your Honor. My third exhibit. Bank statements. 36 monthly transfers. $2,500 each. Total support. $90,000. The judge looked directly at Victoria. Were you receiving this money? Yes. For what purpose? Family support. Did you report these funds on your tax returns? Victoria froze. I wasn't sure I had to. Silence filled the courtroom. My fourth exhibit. Security footage. Video after video. Victoria peering through my windows late at night. My aunt photographing my property. My parents sitting in the driveway. Police incident reports. Trespassing documentation. The judge's expression hardened. Then came the final exhibit. The courtroom projector flickered to life. Victoria's TikTok. She smiled brightly on screen while walking through an expensive furniture showroom. I've already decided where this couch is going in my new house. She laughed. I think the dining room needs something more modern. The video continued. I deserve this life. The judge let the clip finish. Then she folded her hands. Miss Victoria. Yes. You recorded yourself purchasing furniture for a home you did not own while actively suing the legal owner. Victoria swallowed. I was manifesting. The judge stared at her. You were manifesting. I believed justice would. No. The judge interrupted. You believed entitlement would replace ownership. The room became completely silent. After nearly 2 hours of testimony, the judge announced a brief recess. 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes felt like hours. Victoria paced the hallway. My mother cried quietly into tissues. My father avoided looking at me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw doubt in his eyes. When court resumed, everyone stood. The judge began reading her decision. This lawsuit lacks any legal foundation. She paused. The defendant legally purchased her home using her own income. Another pause. The plaintiffs have presented no evidence supporting ownership rights. She looked directly toward my parents. What they have presented is a troubling pattern of emotional manipulation. My mother's face turned pale. The judge continued. The court also notes repeated harassment, trespassing, public defamation, and coordinated efforts to pressure the defendant into surrendering legally owned property. Then she turned toward Victoria. Ms. Victoria has demonstrated an alarming sense of entitlement while receiving substantial, undisclosed financial support from her parents. Victoria's shoulders collapsed. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Another pause. The defendant is awarded costs and fees. The gavel struck. For a second, no one moved. Then Victoria burst into tears. Not quiet crying, full body sobbing. Aunt Linda exploded. This is biased. This court doesn't understand family. Security immediately approached her. My father simply lowered his head. My mother looked at me, as though she wanted me to rescue them. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters from local legal blogs had gathered after seeing Victoria's viral TikTok series. Several college students recognized her immediately. Wait. Isn't that the woman who wanted her sister's house? Phones appeared. Cameras started recording. Victoria screamed at people to stop filming. The louder she became, the more cameras pointed toward her. I simply walked past the chaos. Daniel caught up beside me. You won. I looked back one last time. My family stood on the courthouse steps, surrounded by whispers, cameras, and consequences. For the first time in my life, nobody believed their version of the story. I thought the nightmare was finally over. I had no idea it was only entering its most devastating chapter. Winning the lawsuit should have been the end. Instead, it became the beginning of everything my family had been trying to avoid. Consequences. Less than 24 hours after leaving the courthouse, Victoria uploaded another 10-minute video. She accused the judge of corruption, claimed I had manipulated the legal system, promised she would appeal. This time, the internet wasn't interested in sympathizing. The comments were merciless. Get a job. She bought the house. Move on. You're 33. Grow up. Every new video only made things worse. My parents tried their own campaign. Mom posted another emotional essay on Facebook about children abandoning their parents. Dad shared articles about family loyalty, but something unexpected happened. People who had known me for years began speaking publicly. Former neighbors remembered me mowing lawns every summer. Old coworkers talked about how many jobs I'd worked during college. One of my construction supervisors commented, "Elena earned everything she has. Nobody handed her a thing." Their carefully built narrative was falling apart. Unfortunately, their obsession with my house wasn't. Almost every afternoon, someone from my family drove past my neighborhood. Victoria often parked across the street, filming herself while talking about the life that should have been hers. I stopped reacting. Every visit was automatically saved by my security cameras. Every post was archived. Every voicemail was downloaded. The more they harassed me, the stronger my evidence became. 3 weeks after court, I came home from work and noticed movement behind my backyard fence. At first I assumed it was a landscaper. Then, I saw blonde hair. Victoria. She had climbed over my fence. She was kneeling in my backyard, with a measuring tape. Sheets of graph paper lay beside her. Flower bed sketches, patio layouts, garden designs. When she noticed me, she didn't even look embarrassed. She smiled. "I'm just planning ahead." I stared at her. "You broke into my yard. The legal system made a mistake," she replied calmly. "Eventually it'll be corrected." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She genuinely believed reality would eventually surrender to her imagination. I called the police. She remained standing beside my garden until officers arrived. She was arrested for criminal trespassing. As they placed her into the patrol car, she looked directly at me. "You'll regret this." I didn't answer. That night, she uploaded another tearful video from the police station. According to her, I had weaponized law enforcement against my own sister. Even her remaining followers weren't buying it anymore. The comments simply read, "You literally broke into her yard. Actions have consequences. Stop blaming everyone else." While Victoria spiraled publicly, I quietly started asking different questions. Questions that had nothing to do with revenge. Everything to do with accountability. One evening I met Daniel for dinner. After listening patiently, he asked, "What do you actually want?" "I don't want money." "I know. I don't even want another lawsuit." "So what do you want?" I looked down at my coffee. "I want them to stop." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then make sure the people who enforce laws know everything." That sentence changed everything. I began reviewing every document produced during discovery. Every bank statement, every transfer, every social media post. The more I examined them, the more inconsistencies appeared. Victoria had received $90,000 from my parents over 3 years. She repeatedly described herself online as financially independent. She accepted donations through GoFundMe while claiming I had stolen a family home. Many donations paid for restaurants, clothing, and shopping instead of legal expenses. She had also submitted financial information using addresses that didn't match official records. Her social media became a diary of contradictions. Videos showing expensive shopping trips, posts bragging about living independently, messages discussing how she planned to renovate my house before ever owning it. She had documented almost everything herself. I simply organized it. Daniel reviewed the files. "This is extensive. I wanted facts." "You have facts. So what now?" "Now the appropriate agencies decide." I submitted formal reports supported by documentation. Tax authorities received financial discrepancies. Consumer fraud investigators received information regarding the fundraising campaign. The fundraising platform received evidence showing how donated money had been used. Social media companies received records of repeated harassment and targeted abuse. Then, I waited. For nearly a month, nothing happened. My family continued pretending victory was just around the corner. Victoria even launched another fundraiser. It lasted less than a week before being permanently removed. Soon afterward, her social media accounts began disappearing. First Instagram, then TikTok, then other platforms. Each suspension fueled another emotional outburst. "They're silencing me." "No," one commenter wrote before the account vanished. "They're enforcing rules." Then the letters arrived. Official letters. My parents received notice that their finances would be reviewed. Victoria received requests for additional documentation regarding income and reported earnings. Phone calls from investigators followed. Meetings with attorneys. Questions they couldn't answer. For the first time in months, my phone stopped ringing. No more threatening messages. No more surprise visits. No more dramatic Facebook posts. Silence. Apparently, dealing with investigators leaves very little energy for harassing your daughter. Life slowly became peaceful again. I focused on work. 3 months later, I was promoted to Senior Investment Director. The long nights and endless negotiations had finally paid off. Around the same time, something else unexpected happened. I met Ethan Collins. We met at a commercial real estate conference after he spoke on sustainable urban development. Unlike the chaos I'd been surrounded by, Ethan was calm, patient, the type of man who listened more than he talked. He never asked me why I had become so guarded. He simply earned my trust, one conversation at a time. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a future that wasn't built around surviving. 6 months after the lawsuit, my phone rang at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Dad. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. His voice barely sounded familiar. Elena. Yes. We need your help. Curiosity won. I drove to my parents' house. The difference was shocking. Their newer car was gone. The driveway looked empty. Inside, expensive furniture had disappeared. Family photographs still hung on the walls, but the pride that once filled that home had vanished. Victoria sat at the kitchen table surrounded by legal documents. She looked exhausted, older, defeated. Dad spoke first. The investigation is recommending criminal charges. Victoria began crying. They think I committed fraud. Mom whispered. The lawyers say the evidence is overwhelming. Then came the sentence I never expected to hear. They said, if you were willing to speak on Victoria's behalf, it might help. I looked at each of them. Months earlier, they had tried to take my home. Now they wanted me to save theirs. Victoria reached across the table. I'm sorry. Real tears. No camera. No live stream. No audience. I was jealous. She admitted. Every success you had reminded me of everything I hadn't accomplished. Instead of fixing my life, I tried to take yours. Mom broke down crying. We failed, both of you. Dad couldn't even lift his eyes. We spent years protecting Victoria instead of teaching her responsibility. The room became painfully quiet. I finally spoke. If you'd celebrated my success instead of trying to steal it. I paused. We would still be a family. No one answered, because there was nothing left to say. I stood. Victoria whispered through tears. Will you help me? I looked at her for a long moment. Then I gently shook my head. No, not out of revenge, not out of hatred, but because consequences are sometimes the only teachers left. I walked toward the front door. Behind me, 3 people sat in complete silence. Finally understanding that love cannot survive where entitlement replaces gratitude. Months later, Victoria accepted a plea agreement that included prison time, probation, and restitution to everyone she had deceived. My parents sold their house to pay debts and penalties. Aunt Linda lost both her reputation and her job after her harassment became public. As for me, I still wake up every morning in the house I earned. Not because anyone gave it to me, because I refused to let anyone take it away. 1 year later, Ethan proposed in that same backyard Victoria once tried to redesign as her own. This time, the future being planned, there truly belonged to me.